Ready? What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Fabrication 101. It's great to see you guys back here today. Obviously, it's been a couple of weeks. I've been gone for a bit. Not really gone, but just busy with some other things. If you're not familiar with this channel or with me, I am a high school welding instructor. I'm also a college welding instructor at a local community college. And we went back to school a couple of weeks ago, or sort of back to school, because right now, for my high school students at least, I am learning how to be an online welding instructor, which is kind of tough if you think about it. So anyway, I've been working on the Bronco a little bit. Let me give you a quick update on that. It is back in the garage. You can see the hood is up, obviously. And that's because I think last time I talked, I told you I needed new valve cover gaskets. So not only did I put new valve covers in, or valve cover gaskets in, I also went ahead and ran the valves. Only a couple of them. A couple of the exhaust valves were a little bit loose. So that actually quieted the motor down quite a bit. I also went ahead, and if you can see it there, it has new injectors. The new injectors are a little bit bigger than the old ones. I think the old ones were 5x10 or 5x11, which means there's 5 holes and they're 10,000ths of an inch in diameter, the orifices. And the new injectors that are in there I think are 5x12s. Part of it was I pulled them out because they were leaking, and here's the old injectors. And let's see, I don't know if you guys will be able to see this. This one, there's a pretty good sized crack right there, and there's 2 of them that are cracked on this cup right here, which I think is what part of holds the injector together. So I just went ahead and ordered all new injectors for this thing. They are in, and it does run considerably smoother. I don't know if it should have a little bit more power because of the injectors, but also because I went ahead, and you can't really see it, but I added a 3,000 RPM governor spring kit to this thing, and a number 10 fuel plate. So once it's up and running, I should be able to get it tuned a little bit better and running a little bit better, maybe making a little bit more power. And being able to go a little bit higher in the RPM. On to what we're working on today. If you noticed, I've got the back tires off on both sides, and that's because I've got an add-a-leaf kit to go in the rear springs. This is a kit from Rusty's Off-Road. I believe it's a 2-inch kit because the back end was sitting about 2 inches lower than where I really wanted it. So I went ahead and ordered this add-a-leaf kit. It was, to me, was the easiest, not necessarily the cheapest, but one of the easiest solutions for the rear end sitting a little lower than what I wanted. And so this really shouldn't be too terribly difficult. It's got to pull the 4 U-bolts and then the center pin bolt. And I should be able to do it without having to do too much work taking things apart. And hopefully I can just do it one side at a time. So let's get on this. We'll pop these. We'll start with one side at a time. We'll go ahead and start on this side since this is where I'm at. We'll pop the 4 U-bolts out. Then we'll see if we can use some clamps, pull the center pin out, put the new spring in, bolt it all back together, and slap it together and call it done. So that was a little disconcerting how easily those U-bolt bolts or nuts came off. They were a little loose, so good thing I'm pulling them apart so I could check them and retighten them. All this oil in here needs to get cleaned out. This is all, unfortunately, shortly after I put this thing together, or actually before I even got to it, these shocks started leaking, and so I had to rebuild them. And this one, on this side, I did not, there's a snap ring that goes in here, and I don't think I had it seated completely when I put it back in, and when I was pressurizing it with the nitrogen, it blew out and blew all the shock oil all over the place, and so I'm pretty sure that's what all this is over here. So I'll get all that cleaned up, and then we'll put the new leaf in, which is a good thing. That I was a little concerned that this might have already had an add-a leaf in it, but looking at the shape of the end of the leaf and the end of these leaves, these are all the same. They're rounded, whereas the add-a leaf is a little bit of a dog-eared cut instead of a rounded end on it. So it gives me pretty confident that this does not already have an add-a leaf in it. I believe these were super lift springs, but I don't 100% remember. So anyway, let's get them cleaned up and we'll stick it back together. Some of you, oops, wrong direction. Some of you guys might be wondering why I'm still running, why I didn't just do a spring over. Well, honestly, that would have been more work because I would have had to cut the spring perch, relocate the spring perch. That would have included having to redo my brake lines and all that good stuff. So just, I don't know, it just wasn't worth it. And some of you guys might be wondering why I'm running a spring under in the first place. Well, when I started this project, I was originally going to be running a fuel injected 351 Windsor that I was going to build into a 347 stroker motor. Does that have a bigger? Nope, just the same size. And so I had some concerns about axle wrap with this, with these springs. So that's why I have the spring under setup like I have, like you see here. Spring unders resist axle wrap a lot better than a spring over setup. There's a lot more leverage on the leaf spring. Ouch. So that's why I decided I wanted to do this instead. Who knows? This may not be the best decision, may not be the best design. I just, again, when I started all this thing, this whole project, money was a lot tighter. I was really trying to do certain things on a budget. I'm missing a washer, but it's way over there. And when I say on a budget, I was trying to save my funds for expensive parts like an Atlas transfer case or ARB air lockers or stuff like that. So I fabricated these leaf spring, I don't know what you call these U-bolt plates with the idea that I wanted to keep my U-bolts out of the rocks and up and on one side to keep them protected, but also at the same time to try to keep them from being big anchors that I'm dragging underneath the rig. So just kind of a hassle to put together, but once they're together, it leaves a nice clean bottom here, and it makes a good jack point too. So. Can't see it, these spring plates or U-bolt plates, the bottom is 3/8 of an inch thick, whereas the tops and the sides are all 1/4 inch material. Alright, so that side's done. Went pretty easy, other than having to pull it back apart because I didn't line up my bottom, the center pin with my bottom plate. Some of you guys might notice, and I don't know if this is right or works or whatever, I just figured I'd try it. My center pin on my leaf spring is actually forward of the center of my axle shaft or housing, and that was because I just wanted to push my rear end back as much as I could, and that gave me like another inch or inch and a quarter of wheel base. Maybe I didn't need it. I don't know if this is not going to work. Who knows? We'll find out. This is an experiment. Anyway, let's knock out the other side real quick, and we'll put the tires back on and see how she sits on the ground. Got that side leaf spring add a leaf all done. Try to ignore my massive wheel spacers. I don't Wouldn't normally condone this or suggest this to anybody, but when I started this whole project, I wasn't really paying close attention to what I was doing, and I grabbed I actually had several of these housings, and this one is actually a dually housing, so it's a little narrower than the front, which I didn't realize till after I'd done all this work. And there's actually quite a bit of work done to this housing to fit these 35 spline axle shafts. All right, it's kind of hard to tell, but the back is sitting about 2 inches higher than it was. It looks pretty good. It does. It's hard to tell on camera, but to me it looks like it's sitting a little low in the front, maybe an inch or maybe a half. I'm not gonna mess with it right now. I want to drive it a little bit and try to get the rear to kind of settle before I get too carried away with messing with the front, because it's pretty easy to get yourself into kind of where you're chasing it back and forth one way or the other. But looks pretty good. Some good lessons to learn on this particular project, you guys. Anytime you're building a new vehicle, new project, fresh project from scratch, or something like this, where you get done doing a lot of work, take the time after you've run it a little bit to go through and nut and bolt everything. Check all your stuff. Like I said, when I pulled the U-bolt nuts off the rear leaf spring on the driver's side, they were pretty loose. They weren't loose, but they didn't take a lot of work to get them to pull off. The passenger side ones were fine. One other thing I obviously need to get on this thing, or it's obvious to me, is I need to put a coolant overflow bottle in on this thing. I don't have a factory one. I don't think I could put a factory one in here. So I'm looking for kind of a cool aftermarket coolant radiator overflow kind of tank that I can use in here out of aluminum or something like that. Either that or some parts where I can make my own. So if anybody has any cool ideas or knows of any cool ones out there, give me a comment down below and I'll see if I can figure out what I want to do here. I don't know if there's any room over here, so I may end up having to run it over there and drop it down next to my power steering fluid. So anyway, be kind of a lesson on this one, you guys. Take the time on these fresh builds to go through and nut and bolt. And nutting and bolting just means going through with your wrenches, common size wrenches, and checking them, making sure they're not loose, putting like a quarter turn snug on them, make sure they're good to go. It's a good idea after any kind of trip, if it's been sitting for a while, that kind of stuff. But this is a fairly fresh build. Like I said, I've had it out on the road like 3 times since it's been done, and just keep finding little things that need to be dealt with as I go. But that's kind of normal when you do something like this. So anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and end this one off here, folks. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. A little bit of a different video this time. Next one will be a little bit different also if I get the wrap in for this, because I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna mess it up and do it myself. So that should be fun. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. If you haven't done it already, go ahead and subscribe, like this video, go ahead and share it with some others if you enjoyed this kind of stuff. And I will see you guys in the next episode of Fabrication 101. In the meantime, do me a favor, do yourself a favor, and go build something.